Imagine you're stuck in the middle of nowhere. No buses, no taxis, and no phone signal. A few months ago, I found myself in exactly that situation. Not in the Sahara Desert or some remote corner of the world, but in County Wicklow, Ireland. The nearest town was a 6-hour walk away. So I did something that not long ago was completely normal. I stuck out my thumb. After a long wait on a quiet Wicklow road, someone finally pulled over, and then another, and then another. Before long, I had made it all the way back home using a method of travel that millions of people once relied on: hitchhiking. Which got me thinking, if hitchhiking was once so common, what happened to it? When I was 16, I got my first hitchhike while on holidays in the west of Ireland. It was so exciting, even if we went to the nearest town only to get some penny sweets. The next chapter, and certainly my hitchhiking peak, was when I was a poor college student in the hippie metropolis of Kinsale, where hitchhiking to the nearest city was very normal. That €20 saved meant a lot to someone who spent their weekly budget usually by Thursday, proceeding to live on rich tea biscuits and instant noodles for the rest of the week. I used to love hitchhiking stories. Someone told me that hitchhiking home from college in Dublin, there used to be lines of people along the road. There was no bus back home in those days, he would go on to say. From roughly the 1930s to the 1970s, hitchhiking was a mainstream way to travel around Europe and North America. Students, soldiers on leave, backpackers, and young people frequently hitchhiked long distances. It also allowed budget travelers to cross multiple countries for very little money. Nowadays, train tickets are astronomical. For example, London to Paris, a fairly common adventure for someone who might want to see the Eiffel Tower or visit Buckingham Palace, can run you almost £400 on weekends, only a 2-hour and 15 minutes train. Of course, a long hitchhike and a real adventure, but still extremely expensive. Last year, I saw a gap in the YouTube market. Nobody had hitchhiked the Ring of Kerry, so I decided to set off and make a video. I had the most fun over the week. I found it easy, usually only waiting between 5 and 15 minutes for a lift. I felt like it's such a novelty. You have hitchhiking all to yourself. There certainly is no hitchhiker fatigue. When I got a lift on that adventure, people were so friendly, usually wanting to chat, asking me where I was going and what I was doing in Kerry. You also get this crazy feeling of trust. Now, something that's very important to talk about is the difference between hitchhiking for boys and hitchhiking for girls. For sure, I think that there's a lot more danger for girls hitchhiking alone than there is boys hitchhiking alone. And sometimes I must say, when I'm hitchhiking, I'm amazed at how trusting someone can be to allow me into their car and to trust me. I feel like I would do the same and to be trusting of other people. For girls hitchhiking, I feel like it can be a lot easier for them and that people are a lot more trusting and far more likely to pick up girls versus boys. So a benefit is that if you're a girl and you want to do some hitchhiking, you're going to get picked up a lot faster. I'd also like to remind you that if you're enjoying this video, to please check if you subscribe to my channel. I've been putting in a lot of effort into my videos and it really would mean the world to me if you would hit that subscribe button. And so back to my question, what happened to hitchhiking? Now I drive around, I would love to pick up a hitchhiker, but nobody does it anymore. I want to pay the kindness back. My first theory is that a lot of people think that it's illegal, so I did some research. In Ireland, hitchhiking is not illegal, but there are some important points to note over the legality of hitchhiking. If you stand in a place and create a hazard or attempt to get a ride on a motorway, yes, that would be illegal. Also, if you obstruct traffic or cause them to stop suddenly, could also land you with a fine.
No television for a week. What?
But standing in from the road with a friendly smile is all good. So that's not the major problem. Sadly, I feel like a big reason is that there's not as much of a need to hitchhike anymore. In the 1970s, Ireland still had a fairly low amount of cars on the road. Roughly about 300,000 privately owned cars. Many rural houses had no car or one shared between the family. In these areas, buses, walking, cycling, hitchhiking and getting a lift from neighbours was very common. Imagine cycling a 2-hour round trip just to go into town and get some banya. Today, Ireland has over 2 million privately owned cars. That's 1 for every 2 people. So the shift has been in 1970 from do you have a car to in 2026, how many cars do you own? I remember last summer I was in Morocco and I planned on hitchhiking to Merzouga all the way out in the Sahara Desert. But in a sad way, I learned that I could get a 15-hour bus for only 18 euros. Versus 3 days of hitchhiking. And unfortunately, this did destroy a lot of my motivation. Another big reason for the decline of hitchhiking is the negative reputation. I feel like every time I discuss hitchhiking, it always comes around to talking about serial killers. In the 1960s to 80s, there was a small number of very high-profile cases involving hitchhikers in the US and elsewhere. Horror movies also fed into this. Movies such as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre created the idea that if you pull over, you might die, even though the reality did not match the danger. By the 1990s, we were now in the stranger danger era. Newspapers covered missing persons cases, and TV news focused on rare but shocking cases. The final nail in the coffin was in the 2000s. Cheap buses, phones with GPS, ride apps, and cars aplenty. But for me, that is a world missing something. After all, hitchhiking taught me so much. It made me think about the way I presented myself. In order to get a lift, you needed to look friendly, face the driver, maybe make some eye contact, and certainly hide your tattoos. When I travel now and meet other backpackers, I sometimes think I bet they have a great hitchhiking story. Questions like, what's the coolest car that ever picked you up? The most interesting character? Hitchhiking also helped me with my fear of rejection and ridicule. In life, if you apply for jobs, try asking someone out, you're going to experience a lot of rejection. There's really nothing worse than standing on the side of the road with car after car passing you. I've learned that it's a numbers game. Usually about 50 cars will pass for every 1 lift. To remember that you gotta put in your time on the road and keep your thumb out. It also helped me understand what a true adventure is, not knowing where you will end up, if you will make it, how you will get there, and to trust in people. And really, what could be more exciting than that? Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you'd like to watch my video Hitchhiking the Ring of Kerry that I did 2 years ago, it should be here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Namaste.